Hello everyone, we are Group 5 consisting of Jeff Bennett, Priscilla Espinosa, Blair Henson, Linta Kunnathuparambil, Megan Smith, Liz Weir, and Kayla Whitehead. The organization that we chose to analyze is the Chrysler Museum of Art, located in Norfolk, Virginia. Before we begin, allow us to give you an abridged history of the museum. The Chrysler Museum traces its history back to the early 1900s, with the establishment of the Irene Leach Library, founded by Annie Wood in memory of her longtime friend Irene Leach. Both women were avid lovers of art and literature and had traveled Europe together for decades. This library later became the Irene Leach Memorial. Shortly after this change, Annie Wood returned to Europe and began sending works of art back to Norfolk. The Norfolk Society of Arts was later formed. Working with the Irene Leach Memorial and the Norfolk City Council, the establishment of the Norfolk Museum of Arts and Science began. The new museum opened its doors in 1933. It later became the Chrysler Museum of Art when Walter P. Chrysler Jr. brought his collection to Norfolk from Provincetown, Massachusetts. The Chrysler has remained a leader for the arts in the Hampton Roads area, and its accessibility to wider audiences grew in 2009, when the museum went to free admission, thanks to a generous anonymous donation, and with the continued support of the museum's members and other donations. Another major leap the museum made in the art world was with the establishment of the Chrysler Museum Glass Studio in 2011. Recently, in 2013, the museum closed for 17 months to undergo a $24 million renovation and expansion, allowing for more gallery space, a better gallery layout, and a more energy-efficient building. The museum reopened in May 2014. Some of the highlights of the museum include a collection of over 30,000 objects spanning over 5,000 years in art history. You'll see some of the most popular pieces in the collection pictured throughout the presentation. The museum has the third largest glass collection in the United States, behind Corning and Toledo. The Glass Studio is an educational facility that does daily glass demonstrations, is a major force for glass performances, and offers classes to the public to learn how to make glass objects. The museum operates two historic houses for the city of Norfolk: the Moses Myers House, which was once the home of the first permanent Jewish resident of Norfolk, and the Willoughby Baylor House, which has gone through numerous iterations of historic home and historic museum. Finally, the museum has one of the largest art libraries in the southeastern United States, with the Gene Outland Chrysler Library, now housed on the campus of Old Dominion University for better accessibility to the public. The mission statement that we came up with for the museum is as follows. The Chrysler Museum of Art strives to serve the community as a leading institution in art and cultural heritage. We aim to do this through making art and culture accessible to the local community, educating and engaging visitors, expanding and caring for the museum's collections, and maintaining free admission. Our vision is to be a leading force in the region for art galleries, education, and community involvement. All of this can be accomplished through the values that we share as an institution, primarily through accessibility, education, and community. With the environmental scan that we conducted, we noticed a number of factors that work to the museum's benefit, as well as those that could potentially cause problems. We'll begin with visitor attendance and demographics. According to the visitor survey data that was collected in fiscal year 2014-15, we had almost 213,000 visitors that year. This coincides with the trend of increased attendance we've been seeing since 2006. Most of the museum's visitors are women, millennials, people over the age of 60, college-educated individuals, Caucasians, and locals. Areas where we could improve with our visitor demographics are with children, those who do not have a college education, and the African American community. Moving right along, as mentioned before, the museum is in the Hampton Roads region, which consists of 7 cities: Norfolk, Portsmouth, Suffolk, Chesapeake, Hampton, Newport News, and Virginia Beach. The part of Norfolk that the museum resides in is in the Ghent neighborhood, which is prone to heavy flooding during tropical storms and northeasters. With the number of renovations and expansions the museum has undergone, the museum has been focusing on going green and also addressing the flooding issue as far as the building is concerned. While the museum does rely heavily on monetary donations from our members, general donations, capital campaigns, and corporate donors, 40% of the museum's funding comes from the city of Norfolk. That money comes out of the city's general fund, which has been growing over the past 3 years. With the museum going to free admission, the museum saw only a slight decrease in revenue, but membership funds are gradually increasing. The general fund receives 40% of its funds from the state of Virginia, which has shown steady, if slow, economic growth. Because 25% of the general fund's revenues comes from real estate taxes, Norfolk's slow housing market recovery has also affected Norfolk's revenue growth. Looking at social cultural factors in Norfolk, the city has a population of 247,000. The city has a large Caucasian and African American population, at 47 and 43% respectively. 5.4% of the population is Hispanic, while 3.5% is Asian. The federal government is the largest employer in the city, due to the city housing the largest Navy base in the world. The Chrysler Museum is the most well-known museum in the area. The closest museums of relative size are the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts in Richmond and the North Carolina Museum of Arts in Raleigh. Our next biggest competitor is the Virginia Museum of Contemporary Art in Virginia Beach. The Barry Museum of Art at Old Dominion University, which broke ground recently and will soon be built on the university's campus, will focus mainly on the studio art glass movement. The museum's website was recently revamped within the past 5 years and is seeing great success with web traffic as it keeps visitors up to date on upcoming exhibitions and events. The museum's entire collection is accessible through the museum's website as well. Finally, the museum has increased its presence on social media with the implementation of a social media manager. The museum has a strong presence on Facebook and Instagram, though links to these pages are difficult to find on the museum's main website. While the museum does well with highlighting events and exhibitions on social media, we could do a better job with marketing the library and research. After carefully reviewing our findings in our SWOT analysis and environmental scan, we've come up with a 5-point strategic plan for making improvements to the museum. Our first goal is to increase the museum's accessibility to all patrons. We'll continue to maintain free admission, while also finding ways to use technology to build outreach to new patrons. We aim to expand the use of technology within the museum. While our entire art collection is currently accessible via the website, we'd like to digitize more things like our archival materials relating to the museum's history and even the Myers collection. Though the museum had an internal information technology department in the past, we need to reestablish it to keep up with the increased use of technology within the museum. We're aiming to appeal to a wider audience through education programs. We need to continuously review what kind of current programming we have and adjust where needed based on feedback from staff and patrons. We'll also need to maintain the museum's relationship with Old Dominion University, as a new art museum on their campus is being built. Finally, we hope to provide more library and research services to our staff and scholars, and find ways to make the collection more well-known and accessible to a broader audience. Our fourth goal is expanding our outreach to the community, particularly with our underrepresented demographics. We want them to know that the museum is a place for them and that they're welcome. We'd also like to expand the museum's library hours to allow more staff, students, and members of the community to come and explore the library's collection. Finally, as with most institutions, we aim to increase our funding. We hope to do this through increasing and strengthening our partnerships with local businesses and with exploring options for membership drives. Overall, the Chrysler Museum has seen continued success as a major arts institution in the state of Virginia and the surrounding region. With its world-class collection, education programs, glass studio, historic houses, library, and ever-increasing presence on the internet and social media, the museum has created a foundation for continued growth. There's always room for improvement, and we've outlined what needs to be improved upon in our strategic plan for accomplishing those goals. We have some people to thank. Without them, this project wouldn't be possible. We'd like to acknowledge Colleen Higginbottom for the visitor survey data, Ann Corso for guidance on navigating internal and external resources, Allison Termine for information on the library's history, and of course all of the staff and volunteers at the Chrysler Museum, for without them, the museum would not be in the position it's in today, and our analysis would not be possible. Thank you for all your time, and we hope that you enjoyed this presentation.